Hello, hello. Megan Thompson here with Megan Thompson Coaching, and we help parents of highly sensitive kids eliminate daily meltdowns in as little as 10 weeks. And we have a 98% success rate with that for parents in our coaching company. We've helped over 150 families, and we're here to support you in doing the same. And in my private practice, we've helped hundreds of families break this cycle down so we know exactly what works. So if any of you are wondering how to parent your highly sensitive kid or how to parent your highly sensitive teen, and you've wondered why I know what we're doing and what we teach with and why I teach it with such conviction, there's your evidence. So let's get started. We're talking today about how to break down the sense of dread that you're experiencing. Now, in parenting a highly sensitive child or a teen who struggles with shutdowns, freakouts, resentment, and refusals day in and day out, you yourself as a parent can also jump straight to feeling like something's wrong. And with the understanding that for your child, they're obviously struggling with managing their big emotions and they don't know how to break out of that pattern. There's something that's not working in how they're managing their emotions. That's true. But whether or not there's something actually wrong with your child, that is a different story. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Because if you're in a trap feeling like there's something wrong with your kid, then it's really, really crucial that you listen, because when your child is hitting, kicking, throwing things, or running away up to their room and holding up and not able to get off the screens day in and day out, you can jump to the conclusion that your child has something truly seriously going on with their brain structure, with how they handle challenges. Maybe they're depressed, maybe they're anxious, etc. And if you've been trying to teach your child coping skills, or walk with your teen about walk through with your teen how they can handle big challenges, how they can talk to adults and their friends and ask for support, and you haven't been able to break out of this pattern, this cycle, then make sure that you stick around, because we know that these are all symptoms of the major issue that you're dealing with. So it is a symptom to be trying to throw things at the wall to see what sticks when you're stuck in the meltdown or shutdown or refusal cycle. So let's talk about how to break you out of it. Okay. So if you are in a symptom of, or stuck in a moment where your child is not being able to manage their big emotions and you don't know what to do to fix that, right? There's key number one, fix it. Then you're in trap number one, and this is looking at your child like they're broken. So when we think about the two main labels that you need to be paying attention to instead to break down the dread of worry or fear of how your child's going to handle any change of event, any day-to-day experience, regular mundane activities like getting their homework done, going to school on time, going over to friend's house as planned, etc., then it's important that you're paying attention to what we're going to be talking about today. So let's get started. All right, the first label, we're talking about two labels you need to destroy the dread that you're experiencing, right? That's what dread is. There's something wrong. I don't know when it's going to happen. I'm holding on with bated breath. All right. So the first thing is that your child is managing their big emotions, and in that moment, your emotions are running the show. Now, as a parent of a highly sensitive child, it's really, really crucial that you are in charge. And so the first thing that you are labeling, and you need to be labeling, is not your child's behavior. It's not the problem that they're focused on. It's not whether or not they're going to get out the door. It's whether or not your emotions are in check. Now, this is not the whole picture, so I'll keep going. Later in a moment, we'll talk about what's really going on and why this is only one part of the puzzle. But what's super crucial to notice is that your child is highly sensitive, and that means that they sense subtle changes in their environment. They are going to be able to read your eyebrows, your facial structure, your tension in your shoulders, etc. So if you're stressed, your kiddo is bound to be stressed, and they're not going to be able to manage their big emotions without you shifting out of this. Now, this doesn't feel like new news for many of you, and it's also true that it's extremely difficult to maintain calm when your kid is losing their mind, or when your teen just won't tell you what's wrong, right? So that's why we're talking about this today, because it's not easy It's simple for us to break it down and to teach you what to do, but it's not easy to maintain. That's why what we do helps parents break it down systematically, because it's not just a sense of feeling like this shouldn't be rocket science. I should just be able to keep my my ish together, if you will, right? It's a matter of how. How do I do that in a way that doesn't lead me to judge my kid, but also doesn't lead me to judge myself, because you're human, you're a parent, right? And as a result, you need to be able to live your life and feel feelings, right? You might be frustrated or aggravated or worried or upset. But how do you manage those emotions in a way that doesn't lead your child to feel like you're trying to be a robot, or lead your child to feel like they are the cause of your emotional experience? So those are the things that you need to be focused on in terms of labeling. The first thing that you should be labeling is not what's wrong. It's where are you stuck and what you need to do to stop it. Because if you are walking on eggshells, it's not just about why your child is upset, right? Many times parents who are walking on eggshells are focusing first on how to help their child stop being so mad, sad, frustrated, shutting down and mute, if you will. But the cause that might seem like it's right in front of you, and if that's your biggest focus, maybe your child is upset about their friendships, or upset about getting their work done, or not wanting to go do their chores when it's time to clean up, or it's time to get ready for dinner and they're disinterested in dinner, whether that be what you're serving or just the fact that they're doing something else at the moment, right? None of that matters if you're not able to manage your own emotional state. So when we think about being able to identify the sense of experience of walking on eggshells, holding your breath, waiting to see if your kid is going to explode, that experience is a foundational skill that you need to build as a parent. Now, it's not the only picture, right? There's lots of parenting coaches out there, or strategists, or courses you can learn that just teaches you how to be a Zen Buddha, right? That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about being able to just completely emotionally disconnect from your child's experience all day, day in and day out, right? Because that's not practical. It's also not possible. Even monks have worries, right? But what's super crucial is being able to notice that your worries are not dictating how you parent your child. All right, so let's get into the next piece. And that is noticing what you're labeling, right? Because we see lots of parents who are going through all sorts of labels that are ineffective. Now, the labels that we see is that they're going through evaluations, might be psych evals, might be occupational therapist evaluations, might be therapist evaluations. Your child might be set up with an individual treatment provider in any way, shape, or form. Might be dietary changes that you're trying to make. All of those small siloed parts of the puzzle of raising a highly sensitive child is not looking at the framework of the big major label we want you focusing on. Because when you're picking those multiple problems to fix at one time, that is going to boost your experience of being reactive, which puts you back in the same cycle of not being able to manage your stress. So when we see parents who are stuck, and by the time they come to us in the meltdown cycle, and they've shared with us that they've tried therapy, they've tried parenting solutions that are supposed to be focused on positivity, they've tried communicating emotional health and using I statements, they've tried sticker charts, they've tried I could go on and on and on. They've tried therapy where their child is able to say what they should be doing differently next time in the session, but then by the time they come home, let me move that down. By the time they come home, they are right back in their frozen state, right? All of those are one piece of the puzzle. And so when you're thinking about labeling, you don't want to be labeling the problem, okay? You want to be labeling your child's personality, okay? And that is highly sensitive. Being a highly sensitive person and understanding how the brain works of a highly sensitive person, 1 in every 20, which means if you're not highly sensitive, it can be very difficult for you to notice how your brain thinks differently than your sensitive child or your sensitive teen. But that label isn't meant to be a crutch. It isn't meant to be a definition of how your kid is supposed to show up in the world. It isn't meant to be a placator, if you will, or an excuse for your child's big emotions to the point where their big behaviors are tied to their big emotions. And those two feel ungluable, if you will, impossible for a parent to notice that their child is experiencing big emotions, and that doesn't need to lead to big behavior. You know that that's not true. Your child can experience big emotions, but they don't need to demonstrate their big emotions through big, ineffective behaviors like hitting, kicking, screaming, running away, stealing toys, or refusing to do their work, ripping papers up and chucking them across the room, all of that, right? Those are big, ineffective behaviors, and they are not part of the personality trait. They are part of the meltdown cycle and the shutdown cycle that you're stuck in. So we have to label the important piece, which is that your child is highly sensitive, because when you start to understand that trait, you start to understand where your child is stuck in their sensory subtleties, in their emotional subtleties, in their thinking process subtleties, and in their relationship subtleties, and how they take all of that information in and then funnel it and categorize it and sort it away. If your child isn't able to do that in a way that makes them feel organized in their brain and their body, then you will be labeling them ineffectively. You'll be labeling them as a defiant child. You'll be labeling them as an oppositional child, or a worried child, an anxious child, an out of sync child, all kinds of things that don't set your child up for success. Now, when we think about the difference between a personality and a diagnosis, it's super crucial to notice that as much as you may work with a professional locally to evaluate your child, that only gets you so far. Let's make sure that we're very clear about this. When you have and I'm saying this for a reason, because as I said before, we've served hundreds of families at this point. We've read evaluations of children that, the parents that we serve will read those, and they all look the same. They literally all look the same. Your child is going to have an understanding of how they respond to the evaluator's questions. You might get a clear picture of how their brain works, but not how to parent them. That's a different story. So it's really crucial for you, if you feel your child needs a professional psychological evaluation, that you know what you're getting yourself into. You understand why you are seeking an evaluation like this, because I'm not saying that they're not necessary in some circumstances. If your child doesn't have the school supports in place, if your child is not accessing education, then a psychological evaluation could be very useful for you, but only if you know how to advocate for your child's needs, and you know how to read it, and you know how to see if there are gaps based on the assessment. And you know how to advocate for your child to participate in an assessment like that. So it's really, really crucial that you're not focused on labeling something that's broken for your sensitive child, because if you know your child fits the 4 components of the highly sensitive trait, then that is super important to be paying attention to first. Mental health diagnosis aside, and I'm saying this as a licensed mental health provider, mental health diagnosis aside, noticing how your child fits the personality trait and understanding how to parent them and what the research says speaking to that will help you avoid many headaches in the future. What are those headaches? Those headaches are mislabeling. Those headaches are misdiagnosis. Those headaches are mismedicating. Those headaches are medicating too early, or setting them up for reactive experiences in any local support systems. So that's super crucial to be paying attention to, because what's important for you as a parent, I already had that one up, is to notice where you're looking for evidence for your child. Now, if you're breaking down dread, right? If you're trying not to get frustrated and build resentment that your child will never get it together, then you have to be noticing how you're labeling your kid. Because if you're labeling them as incapable, and you're labeling them as frustrating, and you're labeling them as anxious, then you're putting the evidence that you see in terms of the struggles that you want to dissipate, the struggles that you want to dissipate, you're using that to define your child. And in order to break out of that pattern of dread, you need to be able to believe that your child can do hard things without big behaviors, and that has to lead first, which is why what we do in terms of where we help parents succeed is completely different, in the sense that one of the things that many coaches will do is stay stuck in the cycle of focusing just on the child. And so highly sensitive kids do not operate in a vacuum. You are raising a child. Who raises the child? You. That means that you need to be able to support your child in managing their big emotions, but you can't do that if you don't think that they're capable. This goes back to what I was speaking about earlier related to the walking on eggshells. Now, there's a big difference between thinking that your child is capable, comparing them to another child, and seeing that your child hasn't met that gap yet, and then wondering how you're going to help your child bridge that gap. That is where your uncertainty likely lies. You don't know where and how to help your child build a skill, like advocating for their needs without screaming, like asking for help without quitting first, like telling somebody they're angry without stomping and ripping things and throwing things and tossing the table, like saying that they're ready to go do something, but they're also scared. Those two things in all of these experiences, if your child is freaking out at the drop of a hat, and then you're trying to help them move into more effective communication strategies, that requires multiple steps. It requires your child to be able to manage their emotions. It requires your child to be able to communicate their emotions. And that starts first with you, because if you're focusing on whether or not you think your child can do it, and you're looking for evidence on whether or not your child can do it based on their past history, that evidence might feel pretty spotty if you're stuck in the meltdown cycle. And it's really important to not get stuck in fear or judgment of your child because they don't have the skills yet. Because what we know to be true for parents of highly sensitive kids and teens is that they need to be able to shift out of their major behaviors through their relationship with their parents. Now, it's really crucial that we understand how this works, because highly sensitive kids struggle consistently with managing stress, and research shows, based on healthy attachments skills and strategies, as well as all sorts of research from the 20s and thereafter, that children who are raised in connected homes where parents understand their child and understand where their child's coming from and feel capable of teaching their child to manage their emotions, those children have a lasting capacity to manage stress regardless of what happens to them. They feel capable of creatively solving their problems. They feel like their goals are reachable. And as teenagers, they feel like they can ask for help. And as children, they feel like adults will help them. Now, those are two different things, because a teenager might not feel entirely certain that every adult will help them. But if they can't ask for help, then that's a completely different story. They need to be able to do both things. Whereas most children can believe that adults will help them, but stay stuck in knowing how to ask for help. So it's really crucial to understand the difference of where your child is stuck, how their personality fits into that, and then also how you fit into it. And that is the cultivating the environment that you're building for your child and their household. Now, if your child can communicate healthily, effectively, safely, skillfully at school, and you're not seeing that skill generalize into the home, it's really, really important that you notice that it is not because your child is struggling themselves. It's because the relationship at home is where your child is stuck in generalizing those skills. Now, I know that this is hard to hear as a parent, and it's also true that as parents, we often can blame ourselves. So why not focus on what is going to help rather than staying stuck in blame and blaming yourself, or shame that you haven't figured it out yet, or guilt that you've been screwing up, right? No need to go that far. If you're stuck and all you need is a strategy, notice that that is typical for parents of highly sensitive kids. Highly sensitive kids can be quite difficult to parent without a strategy. And that's why the meltdown cycle happens, because all of society is focused on parenting non-highly sensitive kids. And what works for parenting highly sensitive kids will work for parenting non-highly sensitive kids. And so when you make that shift to support your child who's sensitive and managing their big emotions and doing that safely, communicating their needs without hitting, kicking, screaming, and blowing up, then we are able to address the entire family dynamic. And that's super crucial, because for you as a parent, you might be looking for that evidence that you are effective in supporting your child, but it's important that you notice that with a system and with strategies and support, like being able to playfully communicate, like being able to validate in a way that doesn't make you sound like you're convincing your kid everything's going to be okay, right? And being able to teach your child to take feedback from you that their behavior is not appropriate or ineffective or isn't working. And do that in a way that doesn't leave them in a spiral of feeling like they're a bad kid, or feeling like they can't do it, or that they'll never get it, or that they like feeling miserable. We have lots of highly sensitive kids who, when feeling challenged by their parents' standards or expectations, can send a message to their parents that they like feeling like an angry kiddo. And you know that's not true, right, for your sensitive kid. But when your emotions are heightened, sometimes you can jump to that conclusion that your kiddo wants everybody to feel miserable, right? That whole misery loves company component. But you know for sure deep down, as we're listening and you're talking, I'm talking to you here and you're listening here, that that's not truly who your child is, that that's when they're stuck, they're frustrated, they're aggravated, and they don't think that anything is going to work. And that's the sense of hopelessness that you really need to be paying attention to, because highly sensitive kids who are stuck in this pattern eventually do build that sense of hopelessness. And we want to be able to support you in breaking that pattern swiftly, because it is a dangerous one in terms of noticing where highly sensitive kids and teens get stuck, and how their behaviors start to become chronic suicidal thoughts or self-harm, etc., which is our expertise in the private practice that I run. And so I don't shy away from telling parents that is definitely a possibility for parenting highly sensitive kids, because it's the truth. Highly sensitive kids who can't manage stress don't think that living is an option long term. They don't feel like they're capable of it. So if your child is stuck in that and it's difficult for you to see how to get them out of it, then I encourage you to book a call. We could support you in being able to support your kids and managing their big feelings and feeling capable of solving problems. Sorry about that, moving things around on my face here. And doing that in an effective way, right? And so we're going to go ahead to meganthompsoncoaching.com/talk if you're a parent of a highly sensitive child and you need support in breaking down that meltdown cycle, supporting your kid in feeling less like a bad kid or a child who doesn't feel capable, and more like a child who knows for sure that they can creatively solve their problems. And then for you, if you're a parent of a teen and you know that your teen also needs support in building those skills and they're ready and capable of doing that, then we encourage you to go to meganthompsoncoaching.com/teen talk. And we'll support you in noticing whether or not we can help both you and your teen get back on the same page, stretch their comfort zone into feeling capable, and support you in not setting labels up on your child so that you continue to dread a situation where you're supporting your kid or your teen in moving out of their frustrated cycle and into feeling capable, calm, cool, collected when challenges happen, because they know that they can handle it. And we're happy to speak with you about what that looks like and whether or not we can help. And head on over to either of those links to make sure that we get you set up with the right professional who can support you. And either myself or my team will talk about where you're stuck, where you want to be instead, and whether or not we can help you. And if that's the case, we do know that we can help you. We will share with you how all of that works. But as I said before, if we feel like there's something that's more efficient or effective, or simply just isn't something that we can solve with you on through the avenues of which we support people in coaching, then we would steer you in the direction of a therapist or a different type of support system. And that's a a determination we need to make after having a conversation with you. It's not something that we can just willy-nilly put a stamp of approval that we can solve this problem for you. It's like I mentioned before, our statistics are high because we only work with parents who we know we can help. So with that being said, happy to speak with you on the phone. Have a lovely day.